Welcome to the Beauty and Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. So this week we're staying on the topic of sex. I wanted to move on, but Tori's like, no, let's keep talking about it. Let's do a whole I'm just kidding. Not really.
We just ran out of time, so we're going to do part two.
We did. We ran out of time last week, and we wanted to continue and talk about a few more things about sex. I'll be reviewing our little 3-part framework and then our 4 keys to great sex.
Perfect.
But before that,
let's do a joke.
Let's do a joke.
Wife, stop being an idiot. Just be yourself. Me, will make up your mind.
What?
You don't get it?
So the wife says, stop being an idiot.
Stop being an idiot. Just be yourself. And then you say, well, make up your mind. Stop being an idiot. Just be yourself. Well, do you want me to be an idiot or myself? I am an idiot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just slow.
Okay.
But I guarantee I'm not the only guy that didn't quite get that.
Okay.
I think what it was is you're the wife and you were speaking from a husband's perspective.
No, I'm being the wife. Stop being an idiot. Just be yourself.
Then you said me.
Oh, okay. So that's the way it's written.
So maybe I should have given that one.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I should have said, Jason, make up your mind.
So you didn't get that from anybody?
No, it was a dad joke, and it was about husbands and wife, and I was like, oh, this one's really funny, and it was not
I should have given
funny
that
to
one.
you at all. Yeah.
It's okay though. Good try, Tor. Fist bump.
Right.
Okay, so listen, I need some of you guys to send us some good jokes, okay? Please.
Somebody send
rescue
something.
My wife. Okay, let's recap real quick last week, if you remember. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it white noise and let you see if you can get it all. Okay, go. Ready? All right, I'm just kidding. So here's our 3-part framework. The purpose of sex is intimacy. Mm-hmm. The product of sex is life. That's why it's pleasurable. Mm-hmm. But when the pleasure overtakes the purpose, then you forfeit the product. Okay, so always remember that. Life, it's all about life. It's intimacy. So it's life, physical life, emotional life, spiritual life, relational life. And then we talked about the 4 keys to great sex. Rhythm, recognize, relax, reward. Rhythm, establish how often you'll do it. That sets expectations. And then there won't be any disappointment. Okay, then recognize. Pay attention to what you really love, like, respect, and are thankful for.
Think about your spouse throughout the day.
Yep. And that's
use the power of gratitude to draw you close.
Yes. And then relax. Relaxing is just let it happen.
Let it happen. Stop holding on so tight.
Yes. And for you men, create an environment that will help your spouse relax. And then fourthly is reward. View sex as a reward, not an obligation. And then women, you can use it as a reward for your husband.
We talked more about using it as a reward, but it's important that we see it as a reward too. That's so important because how you look at it, how you think about it, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I'm reading a book right now that just came out, I think just a few months ago, and it's really actually very good. There hasn't been a book like this that's come out in a really long time.
Yeah.
I think it was a really needed thing to come out. It's called Married Sex, and it's by Gary Thomas, who wrote
Sacred Marriage, I think is what he wrote. It's really good.
Yep. He's a pastor from Texas. I think he's been married 40 years. So I think he's like maybe in his 60s. And then he wrote it with a younger woman named Deborah Falletta. And she is a licensed professional counselor. And she's been married 15 years. And at first I was like, oh, that's kind of odd for a non-married couple. But they are, it's like there's,
they're both like doctors or psychologists.
Yeah, one is a psychologist. And also I just think they really wanted to come together to have the woman's perspective and the man's perspective. And then, both of them are just so in different stages of life. It was actually a really, I think it was actually a really good pair to come together for it. So it was really good. And
but I wanted you to mention last week we talked about oxytocin. Are you ready to dive into that one yet, or you want to dive into some other things?
Okay, so we can start there. So we were talking about how was it oxytocin? Yeah, that we were talking about.
Yeah, during sex for a man, oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical, is released. That's right.
And I said, what about for women?
It's released at a higher level than at any other time. It's like where you get to like flood stage.
Yes.
And you said a woman's oxytocin level is higher than a man's typically, but it's just more even keeled.
Yeah, I actually couldn't remember exactly, but it was from this book that I had read something, so I went and looked it up. I'm actually going to just open up and read it to you. It says a woman has significantly higher levels of oxytocin going through her brain than a male does. Oxytocin has been called the cuddle chemical because it releases feelings of affection, warmth, and bonding. When a man has sex with his wife, his low levels of oxytocin rise to flood stage. A woman's level of oxytocin rises as well, but because her resting rate is higher than a man's, she doesn't notice it quite as much.
Right.
So a man just notices it and feels like, oh my goodness, I feel so connected because he started at such a low level.
And that will help some women who struggle and are like, oh, my husband wants sex again. But just understand, there is a physiological reaction in him that will feel closer to you in that moment than at any other time. And it's not just a physical closeness. It's a mental, emotional, and spiritual closeness he's going to feel to you when you guys have sex.
Right.
So have sex with him.
Well, it's just it's just knowing that and knowing like my husband wants to be close to me.
Yeah.
Like that should actually be a really good thing in our hearts and in our minds, right? Like, but if we're looking at it like, oh, he just wants to have sex again and I'm exhausted, then it can be something that you're not really looking forward to. But if you're like, oh my goodness, my husband actually like really wants to be close to me.
Yeah.
I want to get to that place too, because I know what that connection brings. It brings life.
And if you have established your rhythm, then it's very easy for you guys. It's very simple and relaxing, honestly, for you guys to get into that place. So it's figuring out that rhythm. But oxytocin is a big deal. That's the bonding chemical. And
I just think it's really cool that how God designed us.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And I want to read this other part just after what I just read. It says, during sex, oxytocin combines with the hormone vasopressin, which helps create vivid, emotional, sensory memories, which in turn deepens feelings for the love object. This little bonding hormone instantly works like a super glue to the heart and makes you feel happy, even euphoric, when you hear the soft sound of her voice. It makes you prefer the shape, sound, smell, and look of your mate above all others.
Oh, that's good.
I just think that's really beautiful. Like, I just think that the world perverts, distorts sex, and it just we look at it wrong. And the way that they portray it on TV, and we're seeing this all the time, and in movies, it's like this perversion, as if that only these supermodel women can turn on a man, or and it can feel intimidating to wives. Sometimes you feel like, oh my goodness, like I'm trying to compete with this perversion almost in the world that my husband is inevitably going to be coming across, but when as I began to read this, I was like, oh my goodness, like actually nobody can compete with you.
Yeah. As the wife, nobody can compete with you
because you're the one that's being intimate with your spouse. You're the one that he's allowing his affection for. You're the one that's being bonded to him, and the oxytocin is being released in those moments of intimacy. And as that's happening, something chemically is happening in his brain where he prefers your shape, your smell, your look.
Yes.
It's actually like, that's just really cool.
Your husband no longer will have a type. Like what type are you? Like are you a boob guy or a butt guy or whatever? It doesn't matter. Are you a blonde guy or a brunette guy? No. my type is my wife.
Yes.
That whatever she is. Did she get her hair colored? Okay, that's what I am. And that's why it's so important for us men that we make sure that we're following Proverbs 5:18 and 19. I read it last week. But rejoicing in the wife of your youth. He says she's a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always, which means her breast, her body was meant to satisfy you, but you have to rejoice in her first.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means you have to think about her. You have to think about all the good about her. You have to love her, respect her, like her, be thankful for her. And when you do that, that's rejoicing in her. She's going to turn you on, dude. And there's no other woman that can do that.
But I think for the wife, knowing that, there's a real connection that they feel when they know that.
Yeah.
That they're not competing with this.
Yeah, they don't want to feel objectified.
Yeah, no. I think this book is really helpful. I mean, I wish that we had read it right when we got married or right before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it really, it talks about things that who's going to talk about this? I just feel like nobody talks about this before you're married. I know that we didn't get this in our premarital counseling.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think it can feel weird sometimes to talk about these things with people you know. And so anyways, it's a great book to help you understand just kind of like the different anatomy of that we have.
Yeah.
And how we work and how and just what the Bible says about sex.
Mm-hmm.
And how we look at it, how we see it.
Yeah. Which is a good thing. I mean, obviously Satan is attacking sex.
Right.
I mean, you just look at the movies.
Yes.
Look at all the stuff that's going on out there. And that's why it's important for you guys together. Don't watch the crap.
Yeah.
Just don't let yourselves watch it. Like if it's a bad scene, go get VidAngel. It's only
Right.
$7.99 a month. It'll probably go up with Biden inflation.
Right.
But go get that and don't watch that kind of stuff because you don't want your own sexual intimacy to be perverted.
Right. One of the things that he talks about in this book is one of the lies that that women often believe is that sex is for men. I mean, I kind of grew up thinking men want sex more. It would be like, I would have felt uncomfortable to actually in like a group setting with my girlfriends when I was married to talk about any kind of desire there, because it was just kind of like, no, men, it was almost like you're dirty if you talked about it as if you enjoyed it or it was pleasurable to you. I don't know. It was just, I don't know if that was just my little bubble, but that really struck a chord for me. Like, sex is not just for men. Like, God made it for women too.
Right.
And I think that if you've thought about it in a certain way your whole life, and it's not getting you to where you want to be in your relationship with your spouse, then maybe you need to go back and really start like digging through some of those beliefs. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Like, what were some of the things that you believed, about sex?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that, you were told, or what were the little things that you believed? And so anyways, they kind of go through the different lies and the misconceptions, and that I think is really helpful.
And can I say something about that real quick? Because sex is a spiritual experience. Remember, we talked about it last week, that physical sex, it's a physical manifestation of a spiritual truth. The spiritual truth is that Jesus is the groom, the church is the bride of Christ, right? We're betrothed right now. And there's that intimacy. That's when Jesus's life comes into the church, there's life. I mean, it's when the Spirit of the Lord comes into you as an individual, the way that his life manifests out of you is a perfect mix of God's Spirit and you. Yeah. Like that you are, it's so unique. It's like when Tori and I got together and we had Trey and we had Jake and Allie and Lundy, those four little kids are an exact mix of Jason and Tori, and it's my love for her. And the same is true in our relationship with God and our relationship with Jesus, that his life comes into us and then it comes out of us as a new life.
Right.
And then it just has to grow. So sex is a spiritual experience. Now, here's the thing. We men are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of our home, which means that includes sex. you need to make sure, and I said this last week, that you recognize that the focus of sex is on your partner. It's on your spouse. So if I'm talking to men, it's not about you, it's about her. So your desire needs to be, what can I do to get to please her, to get her to relax, to give her a sense of fulfillment, right?
Right.
Because she needs that just as much as you do. But obviously, we guys, we're just got testosterone in us, which is like the pursuit chemical.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just sitting here trying to pursue and all that kind of stuff. And it could just, we could find ourselves moving to some baseline, I just need sex type thing.
Right.
No. It's got to be deeper than that. Let your focus be on your wife.
Right.
And when you're focusing on her, you're studying her, you're figuring out what makes it work for her. Focus on that first.
Right.
Take a back seat and then watch what happens to your sex life. And then I think you'll find that your wife will begin responding to you in ways she never has before, and your sex life will increase, which will also increase your relational life with each other.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so true. And as you're talking about the correlation between the the bride and Christ, right? Like, could you imagine if you had this belief as a church that you were just there to please
your
God,
husband?
to please God.
Yeah.
But that there was no reciprocation. There was nothing in it
true.
for you.
Yeah,
that's
right.
just not relationship. That's warped.
Yeah.
That's a terrible way to believe, right?
Yep.
And I think that we just have to make sure that we get that straight first. Like it is, intimacy should be pleasurable for both people.
Yes.
And if it's not, then there's a problem. Like,
That's
you
right.
really need to start there. Like there is a purpose for it. It should be
It's intimacy.
Yeah. It should be intimacy. It should be pleasurable.
Yes.
And I think that if it's not, then that's a really good place to start, because you're not going to want to do something.
And you know what's crazy too, Tor, that you say that? And sorry I interrupted you. Can I go on with this thought?
Go for it.
Okay,
Yes.
Go for it.
I was starting to feel uncomfortable.
Here's what's crazy. That's so funny. Because obviously, in a guy, we've got testosterone, and that's like a hormone that really makes us want to accomplish things and all of that. And when after sex, what typically happens is the woman typically has a little more energy and the guy has a little less, right? Because he's released himself, he's released a part of his energy and into the wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so she experiences more energy. The guy experiences more relaxation. It's like, give me a stogie, although I don't smoke stogies, but still.
You want to, don't you?
I do now. No, but yet God is saying, I made it this way.
Yeah.
I made your bodies this way.
Right.
Husbands, wives, come together. Wife, you need your husband. You need him to release himself in you. You need a husband. You need your wife to yield herself to you, and all of these things. And in doing that, it's like crazy to think that is it is simply a mystery.
Yeah.
That mystery is a physical manifestation of a spiritual truth of
Right.
how God's life comes into us and gives us energy, gives us new life.
Yes. Yeah.
And we
So
can't
true.
let Satan come and pervert that
Right.
at all. We cannot let that happen. That's why we wanted to do a 2-part thing on this,
Yeah. So
because it's so incredibly important. Did you have another thing you wanted to read out of that book, Tor?
No, I mean, there's some really good practical things in this book. I'm trying to think if there's anything I wanted to cover, but
Okay. Well, it's fine, but just remember, guys, I'm going to go back to our 3-part framework last week. The purpose of sex is intimacy. The product of sex is life. That's why it's pleasurable.
one thing that I think you talked about, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's good.
I think it was 2 podcasts ago, you were talking about just the power of touch. Was that in our podcast?
Yeah, it was. We were talking with Nathan and Tamsy
Okay,
Smith. We were talking
yes.
about how Dr. John Gottman says
Yes.
that bids, when someone makes a bid and they'll reach out and touch a hand, that the couples that are the most fulfilled are the ones where the receiving partner of the bid responds favorably to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they don't respond favorably to it, then they're typically not a fulfilled or a happy couple, and most often break apart. So
Right.
a man does make bids for
Right.
sex more than a woman's going to make bids.
Yeah.
And so it's important for for you guys to know that when the bid is made, you need to respond, especially if it fits within your rhythm.
Well, one of the things that they talked about in this book was just the power of touch and how important it is to touch throughout the day and how we need that. Our bodies respond really well to that. And, holding hands, massages, hugs, and just like reaching out and touching, like just, throughout the day, just little touches, how important they are and how our bodies respond really positive to those because they're loving touches and we're drawn to love, right? And we're energized by love and we operate our very best in through the power of that love. And so I just thought that was really good for me to be open to that, to see that as a good thing, to see touch and as a really good thing. And as I'm more open to it, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've never been physical touch as one of my love languages.
Right.
But as I began to see that touch is the power of touch and to see how good it feels and to let myself take it in, to enjoy it, appreciate it, I think I'm becoming a physical touch girl. Like I really like.
That's awesome.
I like when you and I are holding hands. Like I just think what you appreciate and what you allow yourself to take in.
Yes.
And what you see as good.
Yeah.
Like this is good. And like, I think sometimes it takes like science to show us it's good, like, oh my goodness, this is really good. But anyways, that was one thing that
it is interesting that
he said, and I couldn't agree more.
It's interesting how if we all have our different love languages. I think we did a podcast on that. Your 5 love languages: physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. I'm a physical touch guy, followed by words of affirmation. You have always been a quality time girl. But when you proactively seek to meet your spouse's love language, what happens is it can gradually become your love language. So now all of a sudden I'm a quality time guy, which was probably last on my list, well, next to gifts. And you've never been physical touch, but now me reaching out and holding your hand is like a big deal to you.
Yeah.
And it never used to be.
Because how you give love is how you receive it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, if I'm going to intentionally love you like this, and I know that I'm working hard to love you, then you become more aware. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I actually like that too. That's how you show me love. Okay. I actually will receive that as love.
Yeah.
I think so many times our spouse loves us the way they know how to love us, but because we're not open to be loved that way, we just cut it off.
Yes.
But if we can be open to the different ways that people love us, and we can be open and communicate. Like, I actually really like it when you do this, this, and this. But if they're loving you in another way, that's not the way you're typically. It's up to you to choose to be loved.
That's right. Yeah.
You need to be open to
Just
love.
receive it.
Yes.
As love.
Yeah. Like, we need to be in a posture with our hands open to receive love.
Yeah.
However you want to give it, I'm taking it.
Yeah,
Like that
good.
kind of posture.
That's good. Okay, so listen, I just, because repetition is key. So if you haven't listened to part 1 of our talk on sex, which was last week, go back and listen to it, because we give a 3-part framework for viewing sex and then 4 keys to great sex. And so I'm just going to repeat them real quick, because it's so important that you capture this and you get it as a part of who you are and make it a part of your relationship. But the purpose of sex is intimacy. Intimacy is to be fully known and fully accepted. The product of sex is life. It's physical, emotional, spiritual, relational life. And that's why it's pleasurable. When the pleasure overtakes the purpose, then you forfeit the product. So it's always focusing on your spouse. And then the 4 keys to great sex: establish your rhythm, how often you'll do it, recognize, which means pay attention to the things you love, like, respect, and are thankful for in each other. Relax into it. Just let it happen. And then view sex as a reward, not an obligation. When you do that, everything changes.
And the book that I talked about is called Married Sex by Gary Thomas and Deborah Folletta.
It's a really good one.
It's a good one. I'm only 3/4 of the way through. So if something comes up that's weird at the end,
it's not Tori's fault.
Don't reach out. I'm just kidding.
Don't judge her.
Okay. Would you rather? Are you ready?
You want to do a would you rather?
Would you rather have small chickens in your mouth that act as teeth and chew your food for
what
you?
Is this?
Or have small flies in your eyes that let you see 10 times better?
Small flies in my eyes.
Yeah. Well, what
That's
kind of question is that? Small chickens in your mouth that act as teeth and chew your food for you. What?
I don't even understand that. I'm going to need to vet these
people are
things first,
weird.
Tor.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me vet these things first.
Give me the flies.
Give me the flies. All right. Hey, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate all your feedback, but I am going to need some of you to step up and start sending us some new jokes. Okay, please, I beg you.
I know. All right.
All right. We'll see you next week.